Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The vibrant costume, a flamboyant fuchsia gown, gleamed under the closet light, almost pulsating with an otherworldly radiance. Hanging on the closet door, it struck a peculiar contrast with Taylor's typically plain attire. Abel, perched on the bed's edge, couldn't tear his gaze away, a mixture of anxiety and fascination reflected in his eyes. "You don't truly expect me to wear this, do you?" His voice reflected his inner turmoil, fingers nervously tugging at his unkempt brown locks. Taylor's response was quick and mischievous, her grin infectious. "Embarking on a transformation, my friend, and what better way than to don a persona as divergent from yours as possible? Can you picture anyone farther from yourself than this?" She dramatically held the dress against herself, basking in its garish brilliance. Abel's expression shifted between amusement and dread. "That's precisely what concerns me." Undeterred, Taylor continued, "Embrace the adventure, but this time, I promise it'll be worth it." The party was in 3 hours, and Abel had agreed to let Taylor work her magic, as she called it. What harm could come from one night of costume play? Their friends would laugh, he'd have a funny story to tell, and tomorrow everything would go back to normal. "Fine," he conceded, standing up. "But if anyone takes pictures, I'm deleting them immediately." Taylor clapped her hands together. "Deal! Now go shower while I get everything ready." When Abel emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, he found Taylor's bedroom transformed into an impromptu styling station. Makeup sprawled across the dresser. A wig stand held what appeared to be long brown hair extensions, and several pairs of heels lined the floor. "I thought this was just going to be a dress," he said, eyeing the collection warily. "If we're doing this, we're doing it properly," Taylor replied, patting the chair in front of her mirror. "Sit. Trust me." The next hour passed in a blur of foundation, concealer, and techniques. Abel had only peripherally been aware existed. Taylor worked methodically, explaining each step as though inducting him into a secret society. "The trick is contouring," she said, brushing powder along his cheekbones. "It reshapes your face." She applied something to his lips that tingled slightly. "And overlining just a bit gives the illusion of fuller lips." When she finally attached the wig, carefully styled with soft brown waves that framed his face, Abel barely recognized the person taking shape in the mirror. "Almost done," Taylor said, stepping back to admire her work. "Now for the dress." The fabric felt cool against his skin as Taylor helped him into the fuchsia dress, zipping it up the back with practiced ease. She added a black leather jacket that softened the look, making it less formal, more approachable. "And now," Taylor said with a dramatic flourish, "for the final touch." She handed him a pair of modest heels. "Nothing too high for your first time." Abel slipped them on, feeling unsteady but managing to stand without wobbling too much. Taylor guided him to the full-length mirror on her closet door and stepped aside. The moment stretched into infinity. Abel stood frozen, staring at the reflection, at the person looking back at him. The brown waves fell softly around a face transformed by careful makeup. The fuchsia dress hugged curves he didn't know his body could create, the black leather jacket adding an edge that felt surprisingly right. But it was the eyes that captured him. His eyes, yet not his eyes. They looked back with an expression of recognition so profound, it stole his breath. "Abel?" Taylor's voice seemed to come from very far away.
Are you okay?
He couldn't answer immediately. Something was happening, something he couldn't articulate. The person in the mirror wasn't Abel in a dress. It was someone else, someone who had always been there, waiting.
That's not me,
he whispered, but even as the words left his lips, he knew they weren't true. It was him, a version of him he'd never allowed himself to see before. What do you mean? Taylor asked, concern edging her voice. Abel reached out, fingers brushing the cool surface of the mirror.
That's Camille.
The name had come from nowhere, yet felt as familiar as his own heartbeat. Camille. Of course that was her name. How had he never known? Taylor moved beside him, looking at their reflections side by side. Her expression shifted from confusion to understanding, a quiet realization dawning in her eyes.
Camille,
she repeated softly, testing the name. Then, with gentle certainty, she's beautiful. Something broke open inside Abel's chest, relief and terror intermingling in a flood that threatened to overwhelm him. He blinked rapidly, struggling to keep tears from ruining the careful makeup.
I don't understand what's happening,
he admitted, voice trembling. Taylor touched his arm. I think maybe you do. The party suddenly seemed impossible. The thought of treating this moment, this revelation, as a joke felt profoundly wrong. Abel shook his head.
I can't go to the party like this. Not now. It's not a costume anymore.
We don't have to go, Taylor said immediately. We can stay here, talk about it. Or not talk about it. Whatever you need. Abel, or was it Camille now, nodded gratefully. Could I just sit with this for a while? Of course. Taylor squeezed his hand. I'll make some tea. Left alone, Camille moved carefully in the unfamiliar heels, exploring how it felt to walk as her. Each step seemed to affirm something she'd never been able to name before. She sat at Taylor's vanity, studying her reflection with wonder and apprehension. When Taylor returned with 2 steaming mugs, she found Camille with tears tracking silently down her cheeks. I think I've always known, Camille whispered, but I never had the words for it, or maybe I was too afraid to find them. Taylor set down the mugs and wrapped her arms around Camille's shoulders. It's okay. You have time to figure it out now. They talked for hours, the party forgotten. Camille spoke of moments throughout her life that suddenly made sense. The discomfort she'd always felt in her own skin, the disconnect when people called her Abel, the ways she'd suppressed parts of herself without understanding why. I don't know what to do next, Camille admitted as midnight approached. I can't just become someone else overnight. Why not? Taylor asked. Isn't that exactly what happened tonight? You didn't become someone else. You became yourself. The words hung in the air between them, profound in their simplicity. Besides, Taylor continued, you don't have to figure everything out at once. Small steps. In the weeks that followed, Taylor became Camille's guide through territories previously unexplored. They started with clothes, simple pieces that felt right. A white blouse with delicate stitching, a navy pencil skirt that hung properly on Camille's frame. The key is finding things that make you feel comfortable, Taylor explained as they browsed through department stores. Forget trends or what you think you should wear. What speaks to you? Camille discovered she gravitated toward classic styles, clothes that weren't flashy but made her feel put together. Each new item was a small victory, another piece of herself reclaimed. The makeup lessons continued too, but with a different focus. Less is more for every day, Taylor demonstrated, showing Camille how to apply just enough to enhance rather than transform. Save the dramatic looks for special occasions. The brown wig remained a constant, though Taylor helped her find one of better quality, soft, natural-looking hair that fell just past her shoulders. Eventually, you might want to grow your own hair out, Taylor suggested. But this works perfectly for now. 1 month after the night of the costume party, Taylor brought up something Camille had been avoiding. "There's a support group that meets at the Community Education Center," she said carefully, showing Camille a flyer. "For people who are transgender or questioning, maybe it would help to talk with others who understand what you're going through." Camille stared at the flyer, heart racing. Taking this step meant acknowledging publicly what she'd only shared with Taylor so far. It meant being seen, truly seen, for the first time. "Would you come with me?" she asked, voice small. "Of course," Taylor answered, without hesitation. "But I think it would be good for you to participate on your own. I can wait outside if you want." The day of the meeting, Camille dressed with particular care in her white blouse and navy pencil skirt, a simple gold necklace at her throat. Her hands trembled as she applied her makeup, and the brown wig took 3 attempts to position correctly. "You look perfect," Taylor assured her as they drove to the center. "Remember, everyone there is on their own journey. No one expects you to have all the answers." The room was set up with chairs in a circle, about 15 people already seated and chatting quietly when they arrived. Taylor gave Camille's hand a squeeze before finding a spot in the waiting area outside. "First time?" A woman with auburn hair approached, smiling warmly. "I'm Morgan, one of the group facilitators." "Camille," she replied, the name still new but increasingly familiar on her tongue. "And yes, first time." Morgan nodded. "Well, Camille, you're very welcome here. We usually start with introductions, but no pressure to share more than you're comfortable with." Taking a seat in the circle, Camille tried to calm her racing heart. When her turn came to introduce herself, she spoke barely above a whisper. "My name is Camille. Until a month ago, everyone knew me as Abel. I'm still figuring things out, but I know I'm not who I was pretending to be." The words hung in the air for a moment, before Morgan smiled encouragingly. "Thank you for your honesty, Camille. That first step of acknowledgement is often the hardest." As others shared their stories, Camille felt something shift inside her, a recognition that she wasn't alone in this journey. People spoke of struggles she understood intimately, of small triumphs that mirrored her own, of fears she'd been unable to articulate. A woman named Diana described her first day presenting as herself at work. "I was terrified," she admitted, "but also exhilarated, like I could finally breathe properly." "How did your colleagues react?" someone asked. Diana smiled. "Better than I expected, mostly. Some awkwardness, a few genuine questions, one person who still avoids eye contact, but overall, a relief." As the meeting continued, Camille found herself speaking up, asking questions, sharing bits of her own experience. By the time the 2 hours ended, she felt lighter somehow, as though setting down a burden she'd carried for too long. Morgan approached as people began to disperse. "I hope we'll see you next week, Camille. And if you need resources between meetings, we have plenty to share." Outside, Taylor looked up expectantly from her phone. How was it? Camille couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. It was... I don't know how to explain it. Like finding a room in my house I never knew existed, and it's full of people who speak a language I've been trying to learn my whole life. Taylor laughed, linking her arm through Camille's. That good, huh? I want to go back next week, Camille said decisively. And I think I'm ready to tell my parents. The declaration hung between them, weighty with implication. Taylor's expression grew serious. Are you sure? There's no rush. I'm sure. Camille nodded. Living two lives is exhausting. I want to be Camille all the time, not just when it's convenient. The conversation with her parents was difficult, as she'd known it would be. Confusion, concern, and questions followed her careful explanation. Her mother cried, then apologized for crying. Her father grew quiet in a way that frightened her more than anger would have.
We need time,
her mother finally said, reaching for Camille's hand. This is unexpected, but you're our child. That doesn't change. It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was a beginning. A door left open rather than slammed shut. In the months that followed, Camille began the process of transitioning more formally. She found a therapist who specialized in gender identity. She researched medical options, weighing decisions carefully with professional guidance. She legally changed her name, the certificate arriving in the mail like a birth announcement for a person who had always existed. Not everything was smooth. She lost friends who couldn't or wouldn't understand. She endured stares and whispers in public places. She learned which battles were worth fighting and which to let go. But there were unexpected joys, too. The first time a barista called her ma'am without prompting. The way her confidence grew as her external appearance aligned more closely with her internal sense of self. The relationships that deepened because they were finally authentic. 1 year after the costume party, Camille stood before Taylor's mirror again, wearing a different fuchsia dress, this one chosen deliberately, a celebration rather than a costume. What do you think? She asked, smoothing the fabric over her hips. Her brown hair, now her own and grown to her shoulders, caught the light as she turned. Taylor studied her, eyes bright with unshed tears. I think Camille was always there, waiting for you to find her. And I'm so glad you did. Camille smiled, recognizing herself fully in the reflection. Me too, she said simply. Me too. They were meeting friends for dinner, some old, some new from her support group. People who knew her story and people who only knew her as she was now. All of them, together, forming the tapestry of her life as Camille. As they prepared to leave, Taylor paused at the door. Do you ever miss him? Abel, I mean. Camille considered the question, head tilted thoughtfully. I don't think so. Abel was a role I played because I didn't know there was an alternative. He was the costume, not this. She gestured to herself. This is real. This is home. Taylor nodded, understanding in her eyes. Well then, let's go. The night awaits, and so does the rest of your life. Arm in arm, they stepped out into the evening, Camille moving forward with the certainty of someone who had finally found her way. 2 years later, Camille stood before a different mirror, in a different apartment, her own place, decorated to reflect her carefully curated style. The brown hair she'd once worn as a wig now fell naturally past her shoulders, the result of patience and care. Her wardrobe had evolved too, filled with pieces that felt authentically hers rather than borrowed or experimental. She adjusted the collar of her burgundy blouse, checking that the subtle makeup she'd applied was still fresh. Today marked another milestone, her first day at a new job where no one knew her history. She would start as simply Camille, her past her own to share if and when she chose. Her phone buzzed with a text from Taylor. "Knock 'em dead. Call me after to tell me everything." Camille smiled, typing back a quick thanks before gathering her things. So much had changed since that fateful costume party, yet Taylor remained her steadfast supporter, the person who had first seen Camille when she was still hidden behind Abel's facade. The office building loomed modern and imposing, all glass and steel reflecting the morning sunlight. Camille took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked through the front doors with purposeful steps. The receptionist greeted her with a professional smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I'm Camille Reynolds. Today's my first day in the marketing department." The words flowed easily, no hesitation or apology in her tone. This was who she was. Not a performance, not a version of herself requiring explanation or defense. As she was shown to her new desk, introduced to colleagues, and briefed on her responsibilities, Camille felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The journey had not been easy. There had been painful losses along the way, relationships that couldn't weather the change, parts of her past she'd had to release. But there had been unexpected gains, too. The woman who had always existed within her now moved through the world with confidence, born of self-knowledge. She had built a community of friends who celebrated her authentic self. She had repaired and deepened the relationship with her parents, who had moved through their initial confusion to genuine acceptance. During her lunch break, Camille found a quiet corner of the office courtyard and called Taylor. "So?" Taylor demanded without preamble. "How is it? Do they love you yet? Have you revolutionized their marketing strategy already?" Camille laughed. "It's been 4 hours. Slow down. But it's good. Really good. Everyone's been welcoming, and the work seems interesting." "And no one's asked any awkward questions?" "None," Camille confirmed. "I'm just me. Another new employee starting her job." The simplicity of it was profound, being seen as she was without the shadow of who she had been hovering over her. Abel hadn't been erased. He remained part of her history, the cocoon that had protected her until she was ready to emerge. But now she existed fully as herself, her identity neither a secret nor the most interesting thing about her. "We should celebrate," Taylor declared. "Dinner this weekend? I'll invite the usual suspects." "Perfect," Camille agreed. "And Taylor, thank you for everything. Don't start getting sentimental on me," Taylor warned, though Camille could hear the emotion in her voice. "I didn't do anything special. I just saw you clearly, that's all." After hanging up, Camille sat for a moment longer in the sunlight, reflecting on Taylor's words. Being seen clearly, it was such a simple thing, yet had been so elusive for most of her life. Now, surrounded by people who recognized her authentic self and a world increasingly open to her truth, Camille felt the final pieces of her identity settling into place. She checked her watch and stood, smoothing her skirt before heading back inside. The afternoon stretched before her, full of new challenges and opportunities. And beyond today lay all the tomorrows, days she would face as completely, unapologetically herself. The journey that had begun with a costume party and a fuchsia dress had led her here, to a life that no longer felt like a performance, but rather a beautiful, complex, authentic existence. Camille stepped through the office doors, brown hair catching the light, moving forward with the quiet confidence of someone who had found her way home. That evening, as Camille unlocked the door to her apartment, exhaustion and elation mingled in equal measure. Her first day had been a whirlwind of information, introductions, and new responsibilities. She kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief and padded to the kitchen in her stocking feet. The refrigerator held little more than condiments and a half-empty carton of almond milk. Grocery shopping had fallen by the wayside during the preparations for her new job. She ordered delivery instead, then changed into comfortable lounge pants and a soft sweater, removing her makeup with practiced care. As she waited for her food, Camille opened her laptop and navigated to a document she'd been working on sporadically for months. The cursor blinked at her from a half-finished paragraph, her attempt to capture in words the journey of the past 3 years. It had started as private journaling, a way to process her thoughts during the early days of transition. Over time, it had evolved into something resembling a memoir, though she wasn't sure if anyone besides herself would ever read it. She began typing, adding to the section about her decision to seek a new job where she could start fresh. The prospect of beginning again somewhere new carried both terror and exhilaration. I would no longer have the safety net of people who had witnessed my transition, who understood the context of my journey, but I would also be free from the weight of their memories, the well-meaning colleagues who still occasionally slipped and used my dead name, the subtle shifts in expression when someone new learned about my past. I wanted to know if I could exist simply as Camille, with my history my own to share rather than a fact that preceded me into every room. I wanted to discover who I was when the narrative of transition no longer defined me. The doorbell interrupted her thoughts. Dinner had arrived. As she ate, Camille scrolled through social media, pausing on a photo Taylor had posted earlier that day, a throwback picture from Taylor's birthday celebration 6 months ago. In it, Camille wore a deep green dress that complemented her brown hair, laughing at something off-camera, utterly at ease. The caption read, "Missing this one today. Can't wait to hear about the new job. Best friend forever, #proud of you." Camille smiled, heart full. Taylor had been there from the very beginning, from the moment Camille first recognized herself in that mirror, wearing a borrowed fuchsia dress and a wig that would eventually become unnecessary. Her phone rang, her mother's ringtone, another relationship that had weathered the storm of change and emerged stronger. "Hi, Mom," she answered warmly. "There's my girl. I've been thinking about you all day. How was the first day at the new place?" The casual use of "my girl" still brought a flutter of joy, even now. The early days after coming out to her parents had been fraught with tension and misunderstandings. Her mother had tried, stumbling over pronouns and the new name, grief for the son she thought she'd lost, clouding her ability to see the daughter who had always been there. Time and patience had healed much of that initial pain. Her mother had joined a support group for parents of transgender children, had read books and articles, had gradually come to understand that she hadn't lost a child, but rather gained a more authentic relationship with the person her child had always been. "It was good," Camille told her, recounting the highlights of her day. "Everyone seems nice, and the work will be challenging in a good way." "I'm so proud of you," her mother said, voice thick with emotion. "You've come so far, sweetheart." After they hung up, Camille returned to her laptop, adding a few more paragraphs to her document before saving and closing it. Tomorrow would be another early start, another day of establishing herself in her new role. As she prepared for bed, completing her nighttime skincare routine and setting out clothes for the morning, Camille caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. She paused, studying her reflection, the same brown hair that had once been a wig, now framing a face softened by hormone therapy, the body that had gradually reshaped itself to match her internal image. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But looking at herself now, Camille felt a surge of gratitude for the path that had led her here. For the costume party that had turned out to be anything but a joke. For the friends and family who had walked beside her, and most of all, for her own courage in finally allowing herself to be seen. She turned off the light and went to bed, dreaming of all the possibilities that lay ahead, not as a woman who had once been a man, but simply as herself, as Camille. The following weekend, Taylor organized the promised celebration dinner at their favorite restaurant, an intimate Italian place with amazing pasta and a wine list that could make you forget your budget constraints. Camille arrived to find Taylor had reserved their usual corner booth, already occupied by their close-knit group. Morgan from the support group, who had become a dear friend, Diana, whose own transition a few years earlier had provided both inspiration and practical advice, and Carlos, Taylor's boyfriend of 8 months, who had seamlessly integrated into their circle. "There she is!" Taylor exclaimed, rising to embrace her. "The marketing genius who's going to revolutionize her new company within a month. I'm calling it now." Camille laughed, sliding into the booth. "Let me at least finish my probationary period before we start planning my takeover." The evening unfolded in a warm haze of good food, better conversation, and the comfortable familiarity of people who knew each other's stories. They discussed work, relationships, the latest binge-worthy shows, normal topics that had nothing to do with gender or transition. It was during dessert, a tiramisu they were all supposedly sharing but Taylor was rapidly claiming as her own, that Morgan raised her glass in a toast. "To Camille," she said simply, "for showing us all what courage looks like." Camille felt her cheeks warm. "I don't know about courage. I was just trying to survive." "That's exactly what courage is," Diana interjected. "Doing what you need to do, even when it terrifies you." The conversation shifted to plans for the summer, a possible group trip to the coast, Diana's upcoming art exhibition, Carlos's sister's wedding, where Taylor would be meeting his extended family for the first time. "Speaking of family," Camille said during a lull, "my parents want to have us all over for dinner soon. Mom specifically mentioned hoping you'd come, Morgan." Morgan grinned. "Your mom and I bonded at that last parents' group meeting. She brought those amazing brownies." It struck Camille then, looking around the table, how beautifully interconnected their lives had become. These people who had entered her life at different points along her journey had formed connections of their own, creating a tapestry of relationships that strengthened them all. After dinner, as they stood on the sidewalk saying their goodbyes, Taylor linked her arm through Camille's. "Walk with me for a bit? It's such a nice night." They strolled through the downtown area, streetlights casting warm pools on the pavement. Spring was giving way to summer, the evening air soft and fragrant with flowering trees. "So," Taylor said, after they'd walked a block in comfortable silence, "Carlos asked me to move in with him." Camille turned to her, eyebrows raised. "Really? What did you say?" "I told him I needed to think about it." Taylor kicked at a pebble on the sidewalk. "It feels like a big step." "It is," Camille agreed. "But you two are good together. I've never seen you this happy with someone." Taylor nodded slowly. "That's the thing. I am happy. Ridiculously happy. And it scares me a little." "Because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop?" "Something like that." Taylor glanced at Camille. How did you get so wise about relationships when your love life has been on the back burner for so long? It was true. Camille hadn't dated much since beginning her transition. There had been a brief relationship with a woman from her support group, but it had fizzled after a few months, the shared experience of transition not enough to sustain deeper compatibility.
Maybe because I've spent so long figuring out my relationship with myself,
Camille suggested.
It gives you perspective.
They turned down a side street that would loop them back toward the restaurant where they'd parked. Are you ready to put yourself out there again? Taylor asked. There's this guy at Carlos's work who I think you might like. He's smart, funny, into photography. Camille laughed. Are you trying to set me up while you're still deciding whether to move in with your boyfriend? Taylor shrugged, grinning. I contain multitudes. As they approached their cars, Taylor grew serious again. I just want you to be as happy as I am. You deserve that. I am happy, Camille said, and realized with some surprise that it was entirely true. My life is full in ways I never imagined possible 3 years ago. If romance happens, great. If not, I'm still exactly where I'm supposed to be. They hugged goodbye, promising to call each other during the week. As Camille drove home, she reflected on their conversation. Was she ready to date again? The thought no longer filled her with the anxiety it once had. She had established herself in her career, had built a support network of friends and family, had grown comfortable in her identity. Perhaps it was time to open herself to that possibility as well, not because anything was missing from her life, but because she was curious about what might be added to it. The following week brought new challenges at work, a major project landing on her desk, meetings with clients, the gradual process of proving herself in her role. Camille threw herself into it, grateful for the mental engagement and the opportunity to demonstrate her capabilities. On Thursday afternoon, she was deep in concentration at her desk when a voice broke through her focus. Excuse me, are you Camille? She looked up to find a man she didn't recognize standing beside her desk, tall, with glasses and an approachable smile. Yes, that's me, she replied, mentally scanning for context. Was he from another department? A client she hadn't met yet? I'm Elliot.
I work down in IT.
He extended his hand, which she shook automatically.
Your computer requested an update that requires administrative clearance. I was in the area, so I thought I'd stop by rather than sending you down to us.
Oh, thank you, Camille said, moving aside so he could access her computer.
That's really considerate.
As he worked, typing commands with efficient movements, he asked about her experience at the company so far. The conversation flowed easily, touching on office politics, the best place to get coffee nearby, and their shared appreciation for the rooftop garden that employees could access during breaks. All set, he announced after a few minutes. You shouldn't have any more prompts about that update. Thanks for saving me the trip downstairs, Camille said with a smile. Elliot hesitated, hand resting on her desk. Actually, I have a confession to make. Your computer probably could have handled that update on its own. He looked slightly embarrassed. I may have used it as an excuse to introduce myself. I've seen you in the cafeteria a few times and wanted to say hello, but it never seemed like the right moment. Camille blinked in surprise, a flush warming her cheeks. Oh. Would you maybe want to get coffee sometime? Outside of work, I mean. His confidence wavered slightly.
If not, no pressure at all. I'll go back to fixing computers and pretending this didn't happen.
The invitation caught her off guard, but not unpleasantly. Elliot seemed genuine, his interest flattering rather than uncomfortable. Coffee would be nice, she heard herself say. I'd like that. His smile brightened. Great! Is Saturday morning too soon? There's this place on Elm Street that does amazing pastries. They exchanged numbers before he left, Camille still somewhat stunned by the unexpected turn of events. As soon as he was out of sight, she texted Taylor. You'll never believe what just happened. Taylor's response came almost immediately. Tell me everything. By the time Saturday arrived, Camille had cycled through excitement, anxiety, and back to cautious optimism about the coffee date. She chose her outfit carefully, casual but polished in dark wash jeans, a cream-colored sweater, and ankle boots. Her brown hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she applied makeup with a light touch, enough to enhance her features without looking overdone. The coffee shop on Elm Street turned out to be a charming space with exposed brick walls and oversized armchairs. Elliot was already there when she arrived, securing a quiet corner with 2 cups on the table before him.
I hope you don't mind,
he said as she approached.
I got here early and ordered what the barista recommended. If you don't like it, we can get you something else.
The gesture was thoughtful rather than presumptuous, setting a comfortable tone for their meeting. As they talked, Camille found herself relaxing into the conversation. Elliot was easy to talk to, intelligent without being condescending, funny without trying too hard. He told stories about growing up in a small coastal town, his decision to study computer science despite his family's fishing tradition, his recent adoption of a one-eyed cat from the shelter.
What about you?
He asked, genuine interest in his expression. What brought you to the company, to this city? Camille shared selected parts of her journey, her background in marketing, her move to the city 3 years earlier seeking new opportunities, her close friendship with Taylor. She didn't mention her transition, not out of shame, but from a desire to be known first for who she was now. 1 coffee turned into 2, then breakfast pastries, then a walk through the nearby farmer's market as the morning stretched toward afternoon. When they finally parted ways, Elliot asked if she'd like to have dinner the following weekend. I'd love to, Camille said, surprised by how much she meant it. As she walked home, she called Taylor, who answered with immediate demand for details.
It was good,
Camille told her, unable to keep the smile from her voice. Really good, actually. We're having dinner next weekend. I knew it! Taylor crowed. Tell me everything. Is he cute in person? Did he have good manners? Did he try that awful thing where guys explain your own job to you? Camille laughed, recounting the highlights of the date. He was just normal, interesting and interested. It felt natural. The real question, Taylor said after Camille had finished her summary, is whether you're going to tell him about your transition before things get serious. The question sobered Camille slightly. It was something she'd been contemplating throughout the date. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to wait, to let him get to know me without that information coloring his perception. But I also don't want to feel like I'm hiding something important. There's no wrong answer, Taylor reminded her. It's your story to share when and if you choose to. By their 3rd date, dinner at a small French restaurant where Elliot knew the chef, Camille had made her decision.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!